All right, welcome back to another episode of Sean and Ed's Do Baseball.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Ed's.
And we're bringing you baseball history.
That's right, we're a bi-weekly baseball history podcast where the story catcher doesn't know what the story pitcher is on the mound throwing them.
That's right. And I am going to back-to-back starts because Edsy went down to visit one of our former subjects.
Yeah, it's amazing how much history and respect is given to Charlie Pride around Nashville. I mean, it's not surprising. It's well earned. But there was a few different statues and displays that I forced my girlfriend to take pictures of me next to. So thanks to her for enduring all of my country music fandom while we were down in Nashville. So
yeah, you got to see his bust at the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so that's awesome. If you didn't check that one out, we did a rerun of that last time. And while you were gone, Edsy, I was looking up some World Series stories, and I was very excited to find this one because I had an idea of where we were going to go, and then it kind of went in a different direction. And I'm kind of happy. But you'll see. Okay. Before we do that, where can people find us, Edsy?
People can find us on Twitter at Doing Baseball and on Instagram and TikTok at Doing.Baseball.
I'm on Twitter or X, whatever, at Sean Do Baseball.
And I'm there at Ed's Do Baseball.
That's right. And of course, Edsy, we have a sponsor, our favorite beers, which I am cracking right now, A2 Loons Brewing beer. Either way.
Is that the IPA or is that the new lager, Sean?
Oh, this is the IPA. And check out Two Loons Brewing at twoloonsbrewing.com. And of course, check them out at your favorite bar or your favorite LCBO across Ontario. And lots of big things. I'm really excited to visit them once they get their brick and mortar location going very soon. And Edsy, of course,
please be of legal drinking age and, of course, enjoy responsibly.
All right.
And I also want to, before we get started here, also thank the listeners for listening to us wherever they've found us. And if they could give us a rating or a review, that would help us get a little bit of a bump. And, of course, thanks for listening.
Of course. Thank you so much. And I hope you enjoyed this one, Edsy and everyone out there. Because, this came kind of randomly. I just kind of saw something, and it snowballed from there, and my original idea was put on the shelf probably for next year. But in October, we do like to share playoff and World Series stories. So today, we're going to talk about a game that was played on October 26th, 1986, in Queens, New York.
Okay. The Mets.
Yes. So, it was Game 6 of the World Series, a game which would cement Bill Buckner's name into the history books for all the wrong reasons.
Okay. I think a lot of people are probably familiar with this game.
Absolutely. But we're not going to be talking about that play.
Of course.
At all. Everybody knows about that play.
We're a little bit more obscure than that, or at least we try to be.
Yeah, because Buckner's error was far from the most interesting thing to happen to Bill Buckner during that game.
To Bill Buckner?
Well, to a lot of people, but specifically to Bill Buckner.
Okay, so something else that Bill was involved in.
Yes, so the Red Sox looked like they were on their way to their first World Series since 1918. Boston had gone up 2-0 in the series, only to see the cocaine-fueled Mets come storming back to tie the series at 2 games apiece.
And yes, they were cocaine-fueled.
Oh, just...
There's a lot of coverage you can find on that.
Maybe one day.
Yeah.
So the Sox would take Game 5 as Bruce Hurst managed to navigate the Mets lineup, giving up 10 hits, but through a complete game, giving up just 2 runs. So the Red Sox lineup, featuring the likes of Chicken Man, Wade Boggs, Marty Barrett, Dwight Evans, and Jim Rice, were able to scratch 4 runs off former Cy Young winner Doc Gooden, and the Sox took the game 4-2. They were 1 win away from glory and had just beat the Mets ace. On top of all that, they had Roger Clemens taking the mound for Game 6 against Bob Ojeda.
Okay, so if you're a Red Sox fan, you have like this is the best situation for you going into Game 6.
You just beat Doc, and now
You got Rocket going out for Game 6, and
what could go wrong?
Yeah, exactly. What could go wrong, Sean?
So just as Red Sox fans thought Game 6 started out very well, or just as Red Sox fans thought,
As they would expect.
it started out well.
Okay.
Wade Boggs led off the game with a single. Then Marty Barrett hit a 0-1 changeup right on the nose into right center, but the sinking liner was snatched up by a perfectly positioned, drug-fueled hellion known as Lenny Dykstra.
Okay, I thought that's who you were gonna say.
Then
And he had a huge lip, a chaw, and a cheek full of it.
you can watch this game on YouTube. It's very, very easy to. It was great. It was very easy to research this one compared to the other story I was thinking. So then step to the plate, William Joseph Buckner, the Red Sox 3-hole batter. Buckner was not the type of 3-hole hitter we're used to seeing today. The all-around lefty was a bit of a late bloomer. He was drafted by the Dodgers out of Napa Valley High School in 1986 and made his debut at the young age of 19, playing just one game. The next year, he earned a spot on the roster in April, but hit just 121 and was sent down to AAA, where he absolutely fucking raked. Side note, he had a broken jaw at this time, which he got shortly after his demotion in a collision with teammate, but Bill was tough. What, he just
Obviously, yeah.
played through a broken jaw.
Through a broken jaw and performed quite well.
Yeah. The Spokane manager at the time, some guy named Tommy Lasorda,
Who's
said,
that?
"Yeah, I don't know."
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. He said, "Buck broke his jaw, and the front office told me to sit him out for 5 weeks. Buckner missed only one game and wound up hitting .335 and learned to spit and swear with his jaw wired shut."
He came in and he couldn't speak, but he spit his words out in blood.
He was also just chewing at the time.
Yeah.
Just a wired shut jaw and tobacco.
He said, put some tobacco in there before you wire it up.
just leans his head over and a brown goo just leaks out on the ground. Tommy Lasorda's like, "Ah, boy."
That's the kind of player I need.
So Buckner would secure his spot on the roster the next year, go on to play 6 seasons with the Dodgers, hitting .289 with a very average OPS plus of 99.
It's like reminds me of like Edwin Encarnacion a little bit.
Yeah, he never
Not the same kind of body type, I don't think, but
Yeah. Just, but his bat seemed to get better with age, though, just like a Napa fine wine or a fine, because he would come from Napa. Anyways, so in 7 full years on,
I see what you did.
yeah. So yeah. So I just totally forgot. Yeah, he gets traded to the Cubs. I just didn't write that in here. And then I'm like, oh yeah, on the north side he has an OPS plus of 109. So he's getting better, and he even won a batting title of 324 in 1980.
Okay.
So
Oh boy.
yeah, he led the NL in doubles in both 1981 and 1983. In 1984, the Cubs traded the 34-year-old to Boston. The next year, Buckner led the Red Sox in RBIs, and even without much power, was seen by the baseball elite as a great 3-hole hitter. So basically, he just drives in RBIs. Mm-hmm. That's the reason he hits 3. He's in today's game, he's a high average, but 10 to 15 home run guy.
Yeah.
He's not batting in the 3-hole today.
No.
He's like Whit Merrifield.
Mm-hmm. Like your 6 guy.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, but
still, he's got great numbers, and he's obviously a great hitter, and that's kind of
oh yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you're probably going to touch upon this, but that's the great tragedy of Bill Buckner is he's so well known for this one blunder play that most of us know about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And when I compare him to Whit Merrifield, Whit Merrifield's a good hitter.
Yes, yeah,
very good.
No,
hitter.
It's not just to sully anybody's name.
Yeah, exactly. He's not. He's just not a 3 type hitter, right?
For today's standards.
Exactly. Yeah. So unfortunately, the Red Sox, Bill's bat would go silent in the 1986 postseason. He had an on-base of just 207 in the ALCS against the Angels, in which Boston came back from a 3-1 series deficit. At least in that series, he turned it on for the last 2 games of the series, going 3 for 6 with a run and an RBI.
Okay.
But in the World Series, his bat would go quiet again. He was just 3 for 23 in the series, 4 for 23 in the series with just 1 RBI. And after a good game 2, Buckner was just 1 for his last 14 as he walked up to the plate in the first inning of Game 6 with Boggs on first and 1 out.
Okay, so he's been struggling, but it sounds like he's due.
He's due. The pitch, which was probably a strike at the knees on the outside corner, was dropped by Gary Carter. The crowd applause and cheers had not stopped, though, as Ojeda had thrown the pitch. In fact, it's this Bob Ojeda's about to pitch to Buckner, and the crowd's like cheering him on.
Yeah.
Just a little bit, just because there's a new batter coming up and stuff like that. But there's all of a sudden it doesn't stop throughout the pitch. It's probably why Carter might have even dropped it too, because it just grew steadily louder into a deafening roar.
Yeah.
And the crowd was not going wild for what was happening on the field, but what was happening above the field.
What was happening above the field?
Mike Sergio was born on East 122nd Street in Harlem, New York, I think in 1949.
You think in 1940? It's unclear?
Couldn't find a birthday.
Oh, okay.
Didn't look that hard. This guy's kind of annoying. But no,
All right.
just kidding. He's the main subject of our story.
Okay.
His father ran a weatherproofing business around the corner where he would sometimes work. Mike was not a great student and would attend 4 high schools throughout his teenage years. Around 18, he was arrested when police mistook his asthma pills for something else.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's too bad.
Yeah, so although this experience was clearly just the police fucking up hardcore,
Yeah.
Sergio's night...
Turned him to a hardened criminal?
No, did the opposite.
Oh, okay.
We're going at this from the other angle.
Oh, okay.
It really didn't. Wow. Anyways, but that persuaded him. His night in jail, he was like, I should probably straighten out my life and figure out what I want to do.
Okay, I got you.
He was accepted the next year in 1968 into Queens College and set about studying to become an actor.
Mm-hmm.
Film would become Sergio's career, but he was an artist and dabbled in photography and music. He still does. And it was through a band that he sung in that he met Pete the Greek, who would be a roadie for them.
Okay. Pete the Greek.
Pete the Greek. Thank
He's
God
like a
for...
famous guy?
No,
Oh,
he's
okay.
just the reason why this whole story happened. So
Okay,
Pete the Greek...
Pete the Greek is the catalyst
Absolutely.
to this whole thing. Okay.
Yeah, so apparently Pete the Greek was more than just someone who could move amps and tune guitars. Pete invited Sergio to join him
He
on
made a mean salad.
put a little cheese in it.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the cheese was, man. So he invites Sergio to join him on a trip to a parachute center called Ripcord in New Jersey.
Parachute Center.
Yeah. So remember, this is like 1970s. So commercial parachuting.
Is it like the fan place?
No, this is like you're jumping out of a plane.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was the first time Michael Sergio jumped out of a plane, but definitely not his most memorable. Sergio said of that first experience, and I quote, "I volunteered to be the first to jump because I didn't want to have to watch the others. I was exploring the discipline of being scared."
Okay. So
But
he
like-
just wanted to face his fear, but he didn't want to have the extreme fear of
I
watching the
guess.
other people go. He
I
figured
guess.
that he would chicken out at that point.
Yeah, I guess. I like that. It was just like, I was exploring being scared, but I didn't want to watch everybody else because that would have been too scary, so I just did it.
All right.
But apparently he loved it, and Michael Sergio kept exploring this discipline as he began to parachute more and more. And that's where he met his friend and mentor, Jumpmaster Owen Quinn. Quinn,
Master.
yeah, he's a serious parachutist.
Oh, it's a fitting name.
Yeah, well, we're
It's a
gonna.
cool job title.
Well,
Do you write that like on your landing card when you like land in other countries? Like occupation jump master.
I'm good at jumping.
I jump from really high.
Really high. It is a job.
Like parachute master would probably be better.
Anyway, jump master.
Carrying on.
So Quinn legitimately saved Sergio's life, but not in any way you'd actually expect. Once at an upstate skydiving site called Shawanagi, Quinn persuaded Sergio and a group of other skydivers to move their campsite from under a large pine tree. Shortly after, a bolt of lightning split the tree in half.
You can just sense it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're like, oh, well, this dude's cool.
You saved our lives. Thank you, jump master.
Yeah. So Quinn and Sergio became close friends, both having grown up a little rough in New York. Although on that part, Quinn beat Sergio's expulsion. Sergio's like, I got kicked out of school and I got arrested for my asthma pills. But, Quinn was a decade older than Sergio and had briefly been abandoned to an abusive New York Catholic orphanage. Both his parents were just like, nah, fuck it.
Okay. He wins.
Yeah. So as a boy, he was forced to join the army or go to jail when he was 20. So he got into some serious shit, and the judge was like, jail, whatever, or army. He chose army, and more specifically, the airborne division.
Okay, makes sense. It's coming together.
Yep. But he goes to jump school and never jumps.
They're like, man, you're the jump master. Okay, he doesn't. Sorry, he doesn't jump.
No, he goes to jump school and then it goes AWOL and steals a car.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so jail.
That's a turn out of left field.
Yeah, that's
straight
to jail. You had your choice, and you were like, I choose the army, and then you fucked that up.
Yeah, okay.
So he goes to jail for a couple years. At 23, Quinn...
Jail master.
Yeah, at 23, Quinn finally got to jump out of a plane, though, when he drove with some friends to a parachute school on Long Island. Quinn found his love in life, but would not pursue it for several more years. Eventually, Owen Quinn would become a jump master and would go to West Point for intensive training to become an instructor. So once he leans into it...
Yeah.
Like 7 years after.
If he had just actually done it in the army and not stole the car.
He would have been a pretty cool guy at West Point, though. Like, I don't think he, joined the army. Like, I think it was some, auxiliary kind of, training that he, went to do at West Point. Went
to, a boot camp.
Yeah, well, a parachute boot camp or whatever, So, anyways, he goes back, he studies it, but I don't think he actually joined the army because he works a lot of construction, right? Okay. So he's a jump master, and Sergio and Quinn became fast friends, with Quinn mentoring Sergio, but the two would also pull off one of the greatest base jumps in history when Owen Quinn jumped from the top of the World Trade Center in July 1975, with Sergio alongside him on the roof to snap a photo.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's a pretty intense jump.
So they both remember Sergio's dad had the whatever waterproofing business, and this guy works construction. So they both just are in their construction gear.
And they just snuck up there with some high vis and some confidence, essentially.
Yeah, I think Owen worked on the site for a while too, so he knew it really well.
Scope it out.
Yeah. Because
it would have been pretty new buildings at that point, right?
Oh yeah, I don't think it was 70s. Finished.
Oh really?
Well, no, sorry, it was finished, but the upper floors were still
being built up.
Yeah, so there were people going to work there at this point.
Okay.
But the roof, because they were like, "Oh, we're here to do the roof stuff."
Yeah. People are like, "Whatever, man."
Yeah, cool. Go ahead.
Up 100 stories.
Yeah. So I think the elevators only went up to they had to walk up 30 flights of stairs.
Okay.
Once they, it was a very tall building. Mm-hmm. So he jumps, and he has to just run and jump off this thing, and the building is goes outward, right? Remember we talked about the same thing in the what's his name's when they were throwing it off the Washington Memorial and stuff like that too. So it's just he survives, and he is of course arrested as soon as he lands.
Yeah.
And Michael Sergio had no idea. It was I hope he lived, and like ran down the stairs, and the security guards were like, "Where's your body?" Like,
that guy's got to work till 4.
yeah, so he's got a plan. So he takes this really famous photo of Buddy like jumping off the edge, and like I think that's wild to just be like, "Hope he lived," and then like run down and. You know, so he changes, he goes into a bathroom, he changes out of his construction clothes into like suit and tie, and the police are like running up while he's like, "Hey fellas, how you doing?" So this is from a Sports Illustrated article, which was fantastic for the background here. And I quote, Sergio took his film to ABC News, and when pictures appeared, Quinn phoned to ask if he could turn Sergio in. After all, the police knew someone was with Quinn on the building. Sergio agreed, and they ended up in a bar along with 3 detectives swapping stories.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was like literally.
That guy was pretty cool, guys, but like, don't fucking do that again.
Exactly. It's literally a slap on the wrist. They're like, "You want to just go for some beers with these detectives, and
they'll scare you a little bit, and then they'll just let you go, but don't fucking do that again."
Yeah. So eventually, the charges are dropped, and as you could tell, Michael Sergio was probably emboldened to be more than just a witness to history the next time.
Okay.
So Quinn would retire from jumping, and Sergio began to pursue and have some success with his acting career. In 1977, he stopped working construction and was cast on Broadway in the musical comedy Love My Wife. In 1982, he was cast as Rick in the horror movie The House on Sorority Row. And a few years later became...
Classic film.
Yeah, classic. A few years later, I should have watched it. A few years later, he became regular on the soap opera Loving. But in some 80s New York regional soap opera. But in 1986, there was something happening. Something even bigger than soap operas.
The World Series?
The World fucking Series, Edsy.
All right, here we go.
The Mets had gone from basement dwellers in 1983 to a young team on the rise in 1984, but they miss out on the playoffs in both 84 and 85, finishing second both years and coming excruciatingly close in 1985, getting within a game of the Cardinals for the NL East with 4 games left to play before coming up short. But 1986 was, as we know, the Mets' year. They demolished the competition and took the NL East by 21 games.
Wow.
Yeah. Lenny Dykstra led the way through the NLCS against the Astros in a series that was back and forth affair, with the teams trading wins throughout the first 4 games. Game 5 was a duel between Nolan Ryan and Doc Gooden, and they didn't disappoint, with both just allowing 1 run through 9 innings. Finally, in the 12th, Gary Carter smacked a walk-off single to center that drove in Wally Backman, and the Mets went up 3-2 in the series. The next night, in Houston, the Mets would go down 3-0 early, and it looked as though that is how the game was going to end. But the Mets would rally in the 9th and score 3 runs to tie the game. The teams would trade runs in the 14th before the Mets busted it open in the top of the 16th, scoring 3 runs as Darryl Strawberry led off with a double, which was promptly followed by an RBI single, a walk, a sac bunt, a wild pitch, then another RBI single, and the Mets were up 7-4, but the Astros still had life.
Oh, shit.
They mounted a valiant attempt at a comeback and managed to push 2 runs across the plate with their own RBI singles. God, it was just such a fucking 80s. No one hit home runs.
Yeah.
But finally, Jesse Orozco struck out Kevin Bass, and the Mets were going to the World Series.
All right.
As mentioned off...
Go. New York, New York.
New York. The good New York team. As mentioned off the hop, the Mets would lose the first 2 games with Boston... with his team down, Sergio, along with a few friends, met at a bar in Gardner, New York. And they had a brilliant idea of how to bring the crowd at Shea Stadium to life.
Oh, God.
So I flubbed that a little bit. But either way, the Mets, they're losing. And they're like,
So
well,
were the first two games in
Yeah.
Shea Stadium,
I believe they were.
and they lost the first two to Boston.
I believe
Yeah, okay.
so. And I'm
Yeah.
looking it up right now just so I
Yeah.
don't give people the wrong information. Yes, they were in New York.
Okay.
And the Mets, or Boston won the first one 1-0, and the second one 9-3.
Okay.
So now they're going to Boston, and the Mets fans are commiserating and being like, what can we do to help our team?
I got a plan.
I got a plan.
I know a guy who has a plan.
Exactly. So the Mets would come back to tie the series. We talked about that. At this point, Sergio was unsure when to hatch his plan. Both Game 6 and Game 7 were scheduled at Shea, but the Mets would lose Game 5. So Sergio had no choice. You know, Game 6, it was
Couldn't
do or
wait for
die.
Game 7.
You can't
Yeah,
wait for
yeah.
Game 7.
Right. Okay. So yeah, this was back when it was like 2 and then 3 and then 2
2
at the
again.
end.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the night before Sergio hatched his plan, he ran into a few big problems. First, he needed a banner to show the Mets fans and the authorities that he came in peace and was there to support his team. He couldn't get a professional
That's
banner.
a lot of writing to put on a banner.
Well, he's
So,
not going to write that sentence.
Okay.
But he couldn't get a professional banner done in time, right? Because he's just like, oh, my team's down. I got to do something crazy real quick.
Yeah. Got the day and a half.
So he got a bed sheet and he spray painted "Go Mets" on it,
As you would.
as you would. So
Not even let's go, Mets?
yeah, it just says "Go Mets."
Okay.
I know.
Short
For a
and
while,
simple.
I was thinking about what to name this episode, and I was like, "I'll call it Let's Go Mets" because that's on the banner. And then I'm like,
can't.
"No, it just
Go
says Go
Mets.
Mets. It's stupid. It's stupid. You fucked it up." Anyways, so then he got a call from his pilot that basically was like, "No,
It's like, I'm not.
no,
I-
fuck that. I am out." And you kind of get it. But for anybody that's like, why wouldn't you do this? In order for the plan to work, the plane would have to be flying dark without the legally required transponder or its running lights on. At night, they fly
Oh, yeah. I
right
never considered this part.
now.
No.
I went to City Field this year, Etsy,
Uh-huh.
and it is built right next to where Shea Stadium was.
Yeah.
LaGuardia Airport.
Is right there.
It's fucking right there.
Like they fly over the stadium right into LaGuardia.
100% or out.
Yeah.
It's
If you're from Toronto and
Yeah.
you've ever been to Woodbine Racetrack,
yeah,
that's what it's like.
Yeah,
Like,
it-
they're just planes flying over there, over Rexdale to fucking
Yeah.
Pearson constantly.
exactly. So he's like, it's fine. You're just gonna fly me. You don't. We'll get rid of that lousy transponder that tells us where the planes are, and we'll just turn out the lights. So the dude's like, no, I'm not doing that. No. And
That's sketchy as fuck, man.
so I don't have to tell you, the plan was highly illegal.
Uh-huh.
And although he may get the glory, the pilot was essentially risking his pilot's license.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The pilot would not be allowed to fly a plane anymore.
Yeah.
So no
He's
other.
got to land it again somewhere. Like,
Yeah, well, there's a plan for that, but at the
Okay.
same point, it's still sketchy. So Sergio's calling all the pilots he knows, and they're all
they're like, no way, man.
no. And with no other options, Sergio turns to his mentor, Owen Quinn.
Is Owen Quinn a pilot?
No. But I will quote from Sports Illustrated, and this is the best fucking quote in this whole story. Oh, there's a couple. And I quote from Sports Illustrated. Quinn knew a man who could fly the mission, a pilot who owed him a debt dating back to 1969. If Sergio was completely serious, Quinn said, he would give the pilot a chance to redeem himself.
It's like a spy. Listen, man. I know this guy.
What did he-
Jungles of Cambodia, and he owes me one. We just gotta go find him. That's all.
So Quinn, and I quote, I really put the screws to the guy.
I tied him to a chair, and put screws to his thumbs, electrified the screws.
You're a pilot, goddammit, fly! So Sergio had his pilot, and his plan goes into action. So him and two others on the day, because remember, it's a night game, it's a Saturday. It's two others. They rehearsed earlier in the day, and they use a counter story of their like demonstrating a jump for people on Long Island, and they're have an American flag and
we're part of the air
go
show.
Mets, because they have to test the banner to make sure the banner doesn't kill them when it unfurls the parachute, right? So they need to do all these things. So they run through this a few times, and right before they're about to leave, because there's 3 parachutists. One of them is just like, nah, I'm not doing this. I want to go to. I'm just gonna go to the bar.
How come there's 3 of them?
Well, there's 3 of them. The parachute, like it's his friends.
Okay, but like 3 of them, they need 3 to unfurl the whole banner.
No. He has the banner on his.
Right.
And I think the other guy had an American flag, and I have no fucking idea what the third guy had.
Okay.
So maybe that guy's useless.
Just a cover story?
Yeah, he's like, guys, instead of doing this and going to jail tonight, I'm going to go to the bar and watch the game. And this delays them a little bit because they were not planning on jumping during the game. They were planning on jumping and landing during the national anthem or like right after. Right?
They wanted to be like the flyover.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. They wanted it to look planned almost.
Right.
And Sergio wanted it like he's done all the details, but this guy leaving and them arguing a little bit delays things. And they're get up in the air and they're flying and they're listening to the pregame on the radio along with LaGuardia air traffic control. So the plan was to make a straight shot 70 miles north from Cobalt Airport, just outside Wallkill, New York, and they were going to go straight down over the stadium.
Yeah.
And they could almost see the stadium as soon as they got up. Like you could.
Like, there it is.
There it is.
Okay.
Right, and they're flying without lights.
No lights.
So as they approach,
that big green circle over there.
yeah, as they approach, a problem occurred. The game was starting. The remaining jumper alongside Sergio, who had the American flag, was like, whoa, the game started. Like, I'm not.
It's like, never mind.
Never mind. And Sergio was the only one left. And he told the pilot to just be like, keep going, man.
It's like, I'm doing this.
I'm fucking doing this. But remember,
Owen, my fucking destiny,
well, and it's his mentor, right? He was like, if you're serious about this, then I will pull in a debt from 17 years ago where I fucking saved this guy's life. And anyways, so they approach. The pilot aimed for Shea, and Sergio began to psych himself up for what he was about to do. Back to the Sports Illustrated article. Normally, a plane's engines and throttles are throttled back before a jumper leaves, but Sergio had a couple of miles to fly in order to reach Shea Stadium, and he needed all the momentum possible.
Jesus Christ. So he's like jumping a bit, or he's like, we don't have much time.
I need to be going
jumping early. He's like,
yeah.
He's planning it.
Yeah.
Man, that sounds sketchy. How much cocaine were these guys on?
I'm guessing not 0.
Yeah.
He's in the film business.
Seems like not 0.
In New York in the 80s. So I'm still quoting, he would have to leave the plane while it was at full throttle. Sergio lunged back and forth in the open doorway like a downhill skier in the starting gate. On the third lunge, he plunged out of the aircraft and into the night.
My God. It's so intense.
Sergio fell into the night sky and set himself up to open his canopy at 4,000 feet. But for a moment, his pull cord on his parachute jammed because of the fucking banner. Like, it was like trying to go up and it like caught on the banner and he was just like,
oh
shit. No. But he like yanks it and it goes up and he's good.
He's the jump master.
Yeah, well, he's not the jump master.
Well, he was
the mentor.
Student of the jump master.
Yeah. So the last minute, his chute opens along with the Go Mets banner. It's still intact. And Sergio was in the air for about 4 minutes as he cruised toward the brightly lit stadium. As he approached, he now had a second thought that he definitely didn't think about in the plane. He worried he may land during a play and possibly mess up the game for the Mets.
It's like, what if I block a Dykstra home run as I like land, fly into the stadium?
Fuck up a pitch, and then anyways, this is a real problem. The game's going on. Maybe he should just land in the parking lot, he thought, but he watched from a few hundred feet above the stadium as Ojeda delivered his first pitch to Buckner. When the ball popped out of Gary Carter's glove, Sergio made his move, right? So
He's like discerning where he should pick his landing point based on what's happening in the game.
yeah, and I think like people could see him at this point.
It's like, maybe I'll land on Buckner and that'll fuck him up.
Yeah, exactly. So Sergio would say, I could see the play was dead, and I turned into the stadium. I heard a roar. I was confused because there was no play going on, and then I realized the noise was for me. Yeah, man.
It says, "Let's go Mets" on your ass, bro.
I wanted to land on home plate, but Carter and the umpire were not moving, so I had to cut towards the first base line.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Sergio's bright yellow parachute and white jumpsuit, along with his large frame glasses, was quite the spectacle. Get it? Anyways, Sergio was immediately taken into custody as he jogged into his landing about 10 feet from home plate. The crowd roared louder and louder, and as he was being led away by police and security, Sergio pumped his fists and yelled at the crowd, "Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets!"
That's awesome.
He was led into the tunnel of the Mets dugout, but not before getting a big ol' high five from Ron Darling, sitting comfortably and cheering on the spectacle himself.
It's like the ultimate entry into the stadium.
Absolutely.
Didn't hurt anybody, so like I totally admire this guy's move. I mean, he got himself arrested. He probably can't go to Mets games anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean,
maybe he can.
Well, you'll
at this
see.
point.
You'll see. So the funniest part of all this is like, because I watched this several times, at least over the last couple days on the YouTubes. The funniest part is watching the police officer trying to because they're brushing him off the field, and they're like police officers trying to get his parachute,
up his,
and they take him down the stairs, and the parachute's bigger than the doorway. Police officers.
Because it would be, yeah.
Yeah. So Mike Sergio was now a Mets legend, and also Mike Sergio was in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Mets fans would go home happy after the infamous Buckner error, but Mike knew from the start that he would probably not go home that night. Sergio would be charged with criminal trespassing and reckless endangerment. Those charges would be small potatoes, though. The NYPD was one thing, and in fact, Mike's brother David was an NYPD officer. So it's even more I got a buddy. It's David's brother. Go Mets! Go Mets! Oh, you're going to jail. Yeah. Unfortunately, his brother has cancer at this time, too, which is sad. We'll get to that in a little bit. So Mike was definitely treated well by his arrestees. The police definitely were like, "Hey, you want to watch it in jail?" So he spends the night in jail. He's released without bail, right in time to watch his team win Game 7. Started by the high-five giving man himself, Ron Darling. Mm-hmm. Ron would get hit around a bit, though. Apparently, the magic of the parachuting didn't help him too much.
Yeah.
But the Mets would storm back from a 3-0 deficit to score 8 runs combined in the 6th, 7th, and 8th, and win 8-5 and clinch the World Series. The series was over, but as you can guess, Sergio's legal troubles were just starting. The prosecutors in Queens, though, claimed that Sergio's actions could have injured fans and players and had interrupted air traffic at nearby LaGuardia Airport.
The sketchiest part is the plane part.
Exactly.
100%. Yeah.
Exactly. So really the trespassing and the landing and all that.
Yeah, that's all bad to a certain extent, but he didn't really, he didn't hurt anybody in general, but just the flying a plane around when night with no lights on
around an airport.
right next to a busy ass airport is that you should not get a slap on the wrist for that.
Well, the Mets players all pulled in, and according to Sergio, they helped him get a good lawyer. He pled guilty to the criminal trespass charge in exchange for prosecutors dropping the more serious charge of reckless endangerment. So,
Okay.
America, right? If you
Yeah,
get
I
a good
guess
enough
so, yeah.
lawyer, they're like, yeah, that was the worst part, the reckless endangerment, but we'll just go with the lighter part just to avoid trial. And,
Yeah.
you seem to have some money behind you now, and your brother.
Just give us some of that money and it'll all be good.
Yep. Well, and he was fined. So the LA Times reported on December 20th of 1986 that Sergio was fined $500 and sentenced to 100 hours of community service by a rhyming judge in New York.
A rhyming judge?
Yeah, I was very confused by this, Eds. Not just because of the reference to a rhyming judge, which I thought might be like a county, but no, it's like a rhyming judge.
Like he raps?
Yeah, but you'll hear. But it's just the journalistic guidelines, just the way they put the quote, it like messes up the rhyme. So I just fixed the quote. So I'm quoting from the LA Times, but I mixed it around a little bit.
Paraphrased it a bit?
Well, because they put the criminal court name, like the person right in the middle, and it just messed up the flow to the rhyming. So I read it the first time. I'm like, okay, rhyming? What? This doesn't rhyme. And then I'm like, oh, if I just say it differently, it does. Anyway, so criminal court judge Phyllis Flugg ruled, so a week before Christmas, here in the court, I sentenced defendant for interrupting a sport. Community service and a fine you will pay. Happy holiday to all, and to all a good day.
Why?
I don't know. It was just a good mood that day, man. December 20th.
Yeah.
Christmas time.
No, I know, just whatever. Sentencing aside, one way or the other, just like why is she a poet?
Yeah.
At doing it's so weird.
Listen, man, don't take joy out of people's lives.
No, I'm not. Like, go ahead and do all your rhyming. It's just what a weird thing to experience, I guess. I don't know. Carry on. I'm not gonna judge it any further.
I will carry on. Judge it. Get it? I'm such a dad now. Anyway, so Sergio had some bigger problems, though. He gets a slap on the wrist, as noted by the rhyming or rapping judge, and now, though, the FAA had launched their own investigation, which is the Federal Aviation Administration, who is, as you pointed out, quite pissed about the plane part.
They're upset.
They are very upset. They're not gonna rhyme.
Are they gonna rhyme something off?
You flew a plane very dangerously. Tell us who you were with, or
we'll kill you. That doesn't rhyme at all.
I was going somewhere with that. Anyway, the FAA launched their own investigation, and they were hell-bent on finding Mike Sergio's pilot. Mike and his friends in the skydiving community
Where's the jungle pilot? Where is he?
Where's this man?
He's back in Cambodia, man.
So he's subpoenaed and interrogated. Even his friends, they're like, who fucking flew this plane?
Yeah.
And none of them, because they're all skydivers. They have a code. If they rat on pilots, then no one's going to fly for them, and then they're not going to do that. So they all stood. Nobody said anything. And I think Mike kept it pretty close to the chest. But obviously, at least two of his friends knew because they were with him. And so at first, they were like playing good cop, or I guess good FAA. And they offered Sergio immunity if he answered all the FAA's questions, including who his pilot was. They were like, just tell us how you did it in detail, including ratting on your friends, and we won't prosecute you.
Yeah. But you won't be able to continue to do whatever you do ever again.
Yeah. So Sergio stood firm, and he refused to tell them. In May 1987, Sergio was now prosecuted for his unwillingness to give up his pilot. LA Times. The parachutist who dropped in on Game 6 of the 1986 World Series was sentenced in Brooklyn to 6 months in jail and a fine that could reach $18,000 for refusing to name the pilot involved in the stunt. U.S. District Judge Henry Bramwell said he had no choice but to take action that may compel Michael Sergio to cooperate with officials from the Federal Aviation Administration. You may notice, Eds, that quote that I ended abruptly says it could reach $18,000 because Michael Sergio would pay a $100 fine for every day that he didn't give up the pilot.
Okay.
So they're like, all right.
Could be
Today it's 100. Tomorrow it's 2. Then 3. And that goes till 18,000.
Yeah. And then we don't care anymore.
So you gotta find 18,000 bucks, or you gotta talk to us.
Yeah.
So
What a weird arbitrary number.
I know it's the justice system. Anyway, so Mets.
We've decided that 180 feels right. We only care for 180 days. That's 6 months.
Yeah, that's 6 months. So yeah, he gets sentenced to jail for 6 months and $100. So he's per day in jail that he doesn't talk. So
It was Bill Buckner.
he was at the plate. No, he was flying. That was his brother, Phil Buckner.
Yeah.
That's why he couldn't hit in the World Series. He's truly a Mets fan, even though he's from Cal. Anyways, so Mets fans rallied around their dude, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they were
Like,
like,
"Here, we got $18,000. The mafia is just like, here you go.
"Here you go." Well, no, they don't. They get a little bit. They get a little bit more, but than that, like they start actually like rallying around this guy and being like, hey, like, he's a good guy. Like, come on, what are you doing to him? You know, New York
He's
style.
the best guy around.
Yeah, and Senator Alfonso D'Amato of New York would end up working on Sergio's behalf for his release.
Okay.
So there's a public outcry. To make it worse, Sergio's brother was in, like, the final stages of his cancer. Mm-hmm. So he's in jail.
Okay.
And everyone's like, yeah, they like sentenced the Mets guy. He was a cool guy. He jumped into the World Series.
And his brother's got cancer.
Yeah, he's a cop. He's a good old New York PD. Like, so the optics look bad, at least in New York.
Yeah. Okay.
So, you know, politicians get involved. Michael Sergio would serve just 21 days in prison and pay a fine of $2,100.
Uh-huh.
And was a free man. He never gave up the pilot.
Okay. Pilot's still living free in the jungles of Cambodia.
There you go. He's gone.
Yeah.
He is gone.
Yeah.
An FAA statement released by the federal authorities in Brooklyn said, in view of the unlikelihood that continued incarceration would produce full disclosure by Mr. Sergio, the FAA has asked this office for Mr. Sergio's release. Which is kind of fucking badass to just be like, they're like, he's just going to serve the 6 months and then just crowdfund like $18,000. Like, there's...
Yeah, what's the point?
Like, he's not going to talk.
He hasn't learned anything.
Yes, exactly.
He's not going to just cut our losses.
His man's above the law.
That's what we're saying. Mets fans have spoken.
Yeah. But, you know, of course, they have to save face. So U.S. Attorney Andrew Maloney tried to turn everything around for the state, saying his incarceration of 21 days and his fine of $2,100 should stand as sufficient warning to would-be copycats that the government takes violation of federal air safety rules very seriously.
Listen, we only care about 1/9 of how much we originally care once you talk to your lawyers. So, like, don't try to do the same thing.
Slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
Fine would be played by the 1987 version of GoFundMe, and Sergio got out of jail.
Okay.
From the UPI article, I don't know, UPI.com or something like that, there's an article. Sergio, looking tired and unkempt, walked out of the courthouse, a free man, and said his experience represented the American spirit and the willingness of people to stand up for things they know are right. Which is a crazy thing to say. You violated federal airspace.
The American dream is fuck around and don't find out.
I think he just did it.
Yeah.
I think that is the perfect definition of the American dream. No, I just want to be able to do whatever I want and not have consequences.
Yeah. And he lived it.
And he lived it. This dude lived it.
Makes perfect sense, is what you're saying.
Exactly. He was vindicated.
Yeah.
He was
He's
like,
ahead of his time.
I did everything right.
I am a role model. Go Mets.
There was this interview that I was reading that I really didn't include anything from because, as I said, I kind of found it annoying. Mm-hmm. And part of the annoying part that I will include was like the guy's like, the interviewer was discussing the stunt. And he was just like, it wasn't a stunt. It was like art. Like it was a show. Like it was like, he's like I don't know whether he's saying that to be like legally, like that's what he argued in court and needs to keep up that facade, or if he was just being like an artiste, and being like, no, I'm an actor. Like that was not a stunt. That was a piece of theater. So.
It's a piece of living art.
Yeah, so his brother would sadly die weeks later, but he was able to spend some time with him because he got out of jail. So that's the one part where I was like, yeah, he's not going to tell you. Just let him go see his brother.
Yeah.
That's where I do sympathize. And Michael Sergio would continue acting and getting a handful more roles throughout the 80s and 90s, including in a Kojak made-for-TV movie. He's still alive. He's still alive. He's alive, man. He's alive.
He's alive and alive.
He is still alive. As far as I could tell at the time of this recording, his Instagram account has 379 followers and says this in the about. Film distributor, writer-director, jazz singer, Shea jumper, lifelong New Yorker.
What a bio.
Yep. And if you scroll that account or his Twitter account, you can see he still celebrates the anniversary of his jump into Shea Stadium, which would have lined up better for this one if you didn't take a road trip.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, everybody.
And that's that.
Yeah, that's a wild story. I didn't... Frig, I've seen that clip of Sergio dropping down in the stadium probably 100 times, but for some reason I don't remember that it was game six of the World Series where Buckner missed the ball. Like
wow. He was at the plate, and that's the one thing I think that's just like I don't know. I focused in on Buckner and gave a lot of background on the series and stuff.
Well, that's like the historical focus of Game 6, right?
Yeah.
So,
but Buckner was just there were so many things that happened in that series and stuff. We could, I didn't want to do a 1986 World Series like just that. Like it probably deserves it, but I think it's been done before too. So,
yeah, that's been extensively.
Yeah,
covered.
so when I saw a clip of this guy jumping in the stadium, and I kind of just like looked up his name, and then I started finding a lot of background on it, and just the whole story of like that other guy jumping off the World Trade Center, and like him calling in his shot to no one will fly me.
Yeah, and then like
I got a guy.
Yeah, that's like the craziest part of it all is like the setup to being able to actually pull that off. Like it's amazing in itself to see the footage from the game. Yeah. But, myself and a lot of people probably don't think about what had to happen in order for that to happen. Because, like you say, you got to essentially pirate a plane over into airspace that you're not allowed to fly in order to fucking jump into the stadium.
Yeah, like over America's, and you're parachuting in an urban area, which anybody can tell you is not an easy thing. Like you need to be really skilled to be able to do what he did. But yeah, no, that's just it's wild. Buckner probably would go down in the trivia books as like the guy at the plate during that instead of.
I'm going to remember that from now on.
Exactly. So anyways, one postscript on that is it was the World Series that gave rise to the curse of the Bambino, which really didn't exist too much in like Boston baseball, like
lore at that point.
Like that was when people were like, why the fuck do we suck?
It's been fucking 70 years, for God's sake.
What happened? We sold Babe Ruth. That's why.
That's what it was, yeah.
Yeah. But also at the same point, I don't know, I just think of like how much that fucks with you. Like you're at the plate too, and some parachute dude jumps in.
Well, I feel like that would be a major distraction. He was probably thinking about the parachute guy when the ball went between his legs.
I mean, yeah. So I say, Michael Sergio, New York legend.
Well, his plan worked, I guess. Fired up the fans and fired up the Mets, and they won.
I listened to our last playoff one, or not, but either way, playoffs begin this week when some people will be listening to this. Not to date this too much, but who you got? What's your World Series?
I can't hate on the Braves. I got nothing bad to say about the Braves. So,
all right.
I was just down in Georgia
All right.
And people are really proud of the Braves, obviously, as
They're a good team.
as they probably should be. And I'm obviously pulling for the Blue Jays as a fan, but it's just been a weird year. I don't have a lot of confidence in the team, to be honest.
No.
So I guess I'm pulling for my new friends in Georgia that I met down there.
But who's your AL team matchup? What's your World Series matchup?
AL team. Well, it's also they're young, but I think I'll go with our friend Justin's team, the Orioles.
All right. Yeah, that would be a fun
you?
World Series. No, I mean, you almost take it. I'm going Dodgers. I just love the Dodgers.
You can't count them out ever.
Can't count them out. And I would despise this, but if I think Houston can make a run, and I think it could
Houston's always capable of making a run, man.
Yeah,
they just gotta get hot.
They
Their
just
pitching's scary.
Yeah, that would suck, but also be cool, kind of World Series. Anyways, until next time, 2 weeks from now, in the middle of the playoffs, you can join us for another postseason episode. Follow us on Twitter at Doing Baseball, on Instagram and TikTok at doit.baseball. Edsy, where can they find you?
I'm at EdsDoBaseball on Twitter, ErinX.com, whatever you want to say.
I'm at Sean Do Baseball, SEAN. And until next time, thanks so much for listening. Give us a review, give us a rating. And I'm Sean.
And I'm Eds.
And we were doing the baseball.
Okay, bye.